Okay, so in this video, we're still working on the 70 Chevelle Turbo LS build, and in this video, we are going to be putting in all the sheet metal that was cut out to install the T56 transmission, the large drive shaft, correct drive line angles and all that. So basically, I have a big hole in my floorboards right now from the firewall to the back seat. Cut out pretty much everything to get the proper clearance and get that drive shaft up, the transmission up, to get driveline angles in the 2.5 degree range because my car is lowered 3 to 4 inches, so that makes problems worse. So to recap real quick, got a T56 Magnum, brand new from Summit Racing. Had several videos on cutting out the transmission tunnel, 2 separate videos, and then also another video explaining why I had to cut out so much. So check out those videos. It explains the driveline angles and all that stuff. So that's really something that needs to be figured out up front. And I got the Denny's nitrous ready drive shaft or whatever, and that thing is like 3.5 inches in diameter. Plus it has 1350 U-joints. So those are just huge ass U-joints that you need clearance for. Okay, so this video isn't really going to be a how-to video, but I'm going to share progress pics as I go because honestly, this was a very tedious job. A lot of cutting, trimming, measuring, going back and forth, and I cut a lot of the stuff outside to try to keep the garage clean because, you know, the abrasive wheels and whatnot, they make a mess. Same with the grinding. So let's just get right in this video and you can see how it turned out. I think it turned out pretty good. All right, so the sheet metal came in for the tunnel work on the Chevelle. So let's take a look at it. Remember, we made this poster board buck. Well, I also transferred the flat pattern of this into CAD, and I tried, because then I created a DXF for the sheet metal house, and basically it's not the same as this per se, but overall what I mean is the exterior dimensions. It's longer, it's going to be trimmed, but basically I said, hey, take this, roll this guy until you get it close to this, and as you can see, it fits pretty close, and it's a little longer because I plan on trimming it, so that's not a big deal. This black line kind of represents where it butts up with what's in the car, so I have plenty extra to trim and put it in with these what is it, those Cleco fasteners or whatever. So anyway, also this is you know, pretty light gauge material. I can bend this or force it into position. I'm not worried about that, but basically it fits pretty good on there. Okay, so that's that piece. This guy here, remember we made this one, and it's not exact, but again, this piece is super easy to work with. So I forget how this goes. I don't know if it's this way or that way, but anyway, that's gonna go in there like so, right? So that's gonna go there, and then we got this piece, which is over the drive shaft, and it's gonna go here. Okay. Now I cut out 2 floor supports. So what I did is had some 3/16 pieces rolled like this, and I plan on tying in the supports where they were cut out to try to regain some stiffness. I think this should be sufficient along with this. So these will go underneath. You know, I think there's a floor stiffener here and there, and that's going to go over like that. So here are all the pieces we need to make work. So this guy, you know, we're gonna sneak that guy in there. So this is gonna look something like this. So if you can imagine, we need to get that all together. Okay, so I jammed in this piece of sheet metal here, put in a couple Cleco fasteners. So what these are, if you haven't seen these, is they are spring loaded. Let me just go ahead and try to use one really quick. So what you do is you drill an 1/8 inch hole, and then you got this guy here. You jam it in there, and then it pinches it together. So it's nice because you can take this in and out. Now I'm not going to be able to fully put these clecos in. I think that's what these are called. Anyway, panel fasteners, because I kind of have to have the trans out of here in order to get that all tight. I want to start up here, put one there, and work my way around. But I'm not concerned about that, and it's plenty long. There'll be some trimming involved. But what I want to point out is the shifter hole is centered, and then down here I have plenty of clearance everywhere. So that piece looks great, but I don't think I can go any further until, you know, I pull the motor out. There's going to be some welding underneath and whatnot. So anyway, so let's talk about these floor supports. So this was cut out, and I want to put some strength back into it. So what I need to do is grind away a little more, and what this is going to do is it's going to drop down, and I'm just going to weld this, burn this all in, and then this will give it some strength. Okay, so obviously I need to grind away a little bit, drop that down. The drive shaft is up as high as it'll go, so what I'll do is I'll probably put a little spacer in here, and that will be the clearance between there. This is the worst case. And then same thing back here. I have a lot of grinding to do, but basically I'm gonna burn that hoop in and tie it all in, and then finally put this guy on top. All right, so here's where I'm at with this. First off, I have some scissor jacks on this side here with some 2x4s, and on this side here, and I've raised them up to support my weight, and also just to lift the floor, I don't know, a quarter, half inch or so. There's no sense of having the floor sag, putting this all in and welding it up, because that would just be not ideal, right? So I got the floor up, and once everything's welded in, that's kind of its normal state. So anyway, what I have is these hoops trimmed and tacked in place. Here are the floor stiffeners that run here, and I wanted to tie those back in. So this is 3/16 steel that has been rolled to a 6-inch outside diameter here, okay? And they're tacked in, all right? And I need to fully weld them in, but in any case, that's where we're at. In front here, I have, I'd say, 1 inch or so clearance. I wanted a little more clearance up front here. By the way, the drive shaft is in the worst case position, which means the rear suspension is up all the way in full bump or compression. This isn't going to travel too much, obviously, not at all. Down here, this clearance right now is about 5/8 of an inch, but obviously you drop the rear suspension 1 inch or two, then this is going to open up to more than 1 inch. So this is worst case scenario. Now I wanted a little more clearance up here, because once you get the seats in here, passengers, all the other interior, obviously this is going to deflect down a little bit, and I just wanted a little more room. And I have 1350 joints, so they're big, okay? So this took hours of trimming and grinding and getting it to, you know, 90-95% of the way there. I need to do a little more trimming and whatnot, but anyway, I've taken this piece of metal and trimmed it up. So what I'll do is I'll fit it in, I'll show you how it works. But basically, jam it in here. So that's pretty much it right here. I need to, there's a gap here because I need to lift it from the bottom. Anyway, so that's going to work out really nice. Now I just need to tack the hell out of this. I also need to massage the metal a little bit. There are some gaps, so I want to get this as close as possible, so that way it's easier to weld. And then this piece we'll worry about later. Probably going to have to do that with the engine out, or maybe I have to drop the trans a whole bunch. But anyway, it's looking really good so far. All right, quick update to see what the heck is going on here. All right, that tunnel piece right there is fully welded in. Looks great. Some of these welds look like garbage, but I buzzed them down with the flap disc, and there are a few areas right there. I'll probably have to put a little piece here to patch it. There are some big holes there because the sheet metal didn't fit 100% correctly because of too much trimming. Anyway, I have a welding blanket here, And also I went to the dollar store and just got a bunch of aluminum foil and just tried to cover everything, including the headliner, because the last thing I want to do is have a spark fly somewhere and set this car on fire, because actually that happened to my neighbor. I think his headliner caught fire when he was welding. So anyway, I just want to be cautious, and I have all this going on here. And this dollar store aluminum foil couldn't be any thinner. It'll tear just looking at it. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is drop the trans and the cross member and try to get this midsection all fitted up and tacked into place. So I'll go ahead and work on that now. Alright, so that looks pretty good right there. What I'll have to do up here is probably cut a couple slits in here and then bend this down to mate this. And you know, it's extended in a little bit, but that's as close as I can get it. The rest of these gaps I can pound together, but I'll throw a couple tacks on there and just start beating it with a hammer. So over here, what I ended up doing is just cutting slits in there and smashing it with a hammer. Little rougher transition than I would have liked, but again, that's where the console goes, the carpet. I mean, you're not going to see any of this stuff, and there's plenty of clearance for the trans. You got the transition piece, and then you got the, you know, where the drive shaft lives. Here, you know, I got a good 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch for carpet padding, and the rear seat lives right here. So this is all maxed out. I didn't want to get into modifying any of this because that's where the rear seat is. So this is a good compromise, and this is as good as it's going to get. I can get 2.5 degrees of driveline angles, and if I need to, I can lift the rear of the car a little bit, but overall that's all right. It's all done. Here's how it turned out. Everything's fully welded. This back section here is 100% welded. This is not. 100% welding is overkill, but what I have is a bunch of tacks, and then I have stitch welds spaced every few inches or so. Everything's tight up and around near the firewall, and of course it's long. It's a couple inches longer up top there because you see I have those slits, so I'll have some work to do when the engine's out, but some more welding on the other side and some seam sealer and paint, and you know, it's going to be good to go. So the trans installed was actually beneficial because, you know, like I said, I was able to pry the metals together, and then I was able to put a screwdriver in between those slits and force the metal down into position, hit it with a tack, and work my way around. So that actually was very simple. And of course the shifter lines up mint. The only places I goofed are right there. There were some holes, so I made a little piece of metal patch, tacked into place, and of course once we put seam sealer all over this stuff, it's not even going to be an issue. So man, this was, you know, not really a challenging project, but man, I was thinking about it, losing sleep, because man, it's kind of a big deal. I had a huge hole in the middle of my car, and now it's all good to go. So everything should go together smoothly now. This was the worst part for sure. All right, let's get a good look under here. This is cell phone footage, so excuse the crappiness, but if I crawl under here, so that's all we did. There's one hoop. I got a little bit of a gap right here. I would have liked that to be tight, but this front one here is right on the money, right? It's tight. So here's where I welded. The hoops in. It's all tied in. And then, you know, there's a little bit, see, this is where the weld happened on the inside. This is a little bit that I was extending out, so I just massaged it close to the body, and, you know, there'll be seam sealer here, and it'll all look nice. And then over here you can see plenty of clearance around the trans everywhere. If I look down here, tons of clearance everywhere. And then here, you know, I haven't massaged this sheet metal. Oh man, this is hard to freaking do. So once the motor and trans is out, again, I'll massage this metal a little bit, maybe even trim it up here. In any case, it's, you know, it looks really good. A lot of clearance everywhere. And then a little massaging, seam sealer, and some paint, and this will be good to go. And then back here, this is how that transition happened in the back here. So I just kind of trimmed this, ground it down as smooth as I can. There's a nice little dent here, but in any case, I'll hit this with a hammer a little bit, massage it, and then put some seam sealer all the way around it. But that's the tunnel. I'm right here by the rear end, and now you got a nice clear shot. So turned out all right. All right, let's see how the console is gonna fit. Okay, so that's gonna go something like this. So I bought the stick shift version of this plate, which you can see here. The auto uses this area, so I have this plate, so now I can kind of gauge on where that's gonna go. It seems to be right about there is where it needs to go. Maybe over a little bit. Not so sure if I can get this guy super level. Anyway, you can see that it's still gonna fit pretty good. Up front there's a bracket that we'll probably have to chop off and come up with something else. And in the back here, it's probably gonna come up a little bit. I did save the bracket that was cut off the stock one, so let me put it under here really quick. So you can see I'll be able to re-weld that guy on there, obviously trim it to bring it down a little bit, but I can totally make this work. And obviously there's going to be padding and carpet and all this kind of stuff, so we'll have to work with that, but I think it'll work for sure. I can kind of retain that factory look, have a shifter in here, and it'll look stockish, right? Alright guys, so I'm probably going to end the video right here. Next steps are I'm going to actually throw the seat in here and measure for a shifter handle, and that way I can weld some brackets in for this console and so forth, and just make sure the seats fit good and the seat belts work and everything, because I kind of tweaked all the positioning of that, right? So that's kind of next on the list. So that's gonna do it for this video. This was a long one, and I'm sorry I don't have any how-tos on it, but in any case, it's done, man, and that's all I really care about at this point. So alright, see you in the next one.